Directeur Général, Service des Travaux Publics, Kim Ayotte, General Manager, Emergency and Protective Services, Directeur Général des Services de Protection et d'Urgence, and Bryce Conrad, President and Chief Executive Officer, Hydro Ottawa, Président et Chef de la Direction. We also have additional city staff, Ottawa Public Health, and the Ottawa Police Service available to answer questions following remarks. At this time, I would like to invite His Worship, Jim Watson, Mayor of the City of Ottawa, to say a few words.
Alors, merci Kendra, et bonjour tout le monde. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank our subject matter experts, including our partners at the Ottawa Police and Hydro Ottawa and media participants for joining today's media briefing. A big thanks also goes to the city's Emergency Operations Center for its continued support towards our recovery efforts. As of today, power has been restored to more than 125,000 Hydro customers, with 55,000 still without power. And I know the crews continue to work around the clock to help our residents get their power back. At this rate, Hydro Ottawa anticipates that most residents will have electricity restored within the next 2 to 3 days. By Friday is our goal. Nous croyons que la plupart de nos résidents auront de l'électricité d'ici dans 2-3 jours. Our priorities now include getting pole lines up along Woodruff and Maryvale, where we've seen all the images of the devastation. We're making progress on all fronts, but road closures and traffic impacts are ongoing due to fallen trees and debris on the roadways. Malgré notre progrès sur tous les fronts, les fermetures de route et les impacts sur la circulation continuent en raison des arbres et de debris sur les routes. We need to ensure access for Hydro and city workers as well as emergency vehicles, and we continue to advise residents to stay off the roads if possible. I know going to Barhaven, it was very traffic jammed on almost 3 of the 4 routes going into Barhaven, so I encourage people to please, if you don't have to travel, stay at home. On the cleanup, we anticipate that the cleanup of fallen trees and debris will take several weeks, so assessing the cost will also be a very detailed and lengthy process. We can now confirm that the province is sending 40 firefighters from the Provincial Ministry of Northern Development, Mines and Natural Resources and Forestry to bolster the city's work related to tree debris cleanup. The plan is currently for them to get here on Friday and to join the cleanup operation starting the next day, Saturday. So you'll start to see a lot more cleanup taking place over the weekend. These 10 4-person crews of firefighters will be working 5 to 7 day shifts and rotating out with the new crews that will come in to keep up the 40-person operational deployment. My office contacted the province and the Premier's office, and I want to thank the Premier and MNR for quick action and help during these trying times. I also spoke this morning with Premier Ford, and he assured me that the full cost of the storm cleanup will be covered by the province. I appreciate that very much. The city is offering emergency financial food aid for residents who are in need because of power outages. Application for emergency assistance can be completed online or over the phone, and details are available on ottawa.ca. I want to highlight the allocation of $1.9 million from the Social Services Relief Fund for community agencies that are working to ensure that residents across the city have access to food. These new dollars will go to 20 agencies in all parts of the city and will receive this funding and will be contacted starting tomorrow. Given the dire situation here, I trust that the province will step up to maintain food security in our region. Well, there is some good news to share today. We also have an urgent need for more support from those who can help emergency meal providers like the Mission, the Salvation Army, and others. Unfortunately, 8 community food banks across Ottawa still do not have power as of noon today. I did speak with the CEO of the Ottawa Food Bank. They didn't lose power, but they're obviously being called upon significantly. And I encourage members of the public, if you can, please donate. Money at this time is going to be put to better use than food products, but of course they would accept food products as well. But dollars will help them buy gift cards at the various grocery stores that residents can use, particularly those that lost everything as a result of their power being off and the food going to waste at their fridge or freezer. So residents can also check the city's website for information on the many emergency reception centers that have been open to help residents. We still have 17 of those open. These accessible centers provide washrooms, showers, a place to charge devices, Wi-Fi access, and some centers offer food as well. Location and hours are subject to change based on community needs, so please visit ottawa.ca/storm recovery for more information. S'il vous plaît, visitez ottawa.ca/après la tempête pour plus d'informations. So I mentioned in yesterday's briefing, the city began a green bin blitz that will continue over the next few days in the neighborhoods most affected by the storm. The city has also deployed dumpsters at many sites that provide residents with an opportunity to dispose of organic waste. Several new sites have been established recently, and more are being added across the city where they're most in demand. The city will continue with regular garbage and recycling collection, and residents can set out organic waste weekly in their green bin according to the collection calendar. We just remind you this week, everyone's garbage is 1 day late because of the Queen Victoria holiday. We continue to support our residents and businesses, and we're working nonstop to resolve this particular crisis. City crews are working to remove tree branches and yard waste, but it will take several weeks. We want to manage expectations. You're not going to see all of this cleaned up right away. The first priority has to be getting the roads opened up along with people getting their hydro back. Property owners do not need a permit to remove dead or hazardous trees on their private property, but photos should be taken before removal to provide evidence of the condition of the tree for your insurance company. Since the storm hit on Saturday, the city's 311 call center has handled 7,300 calls, and the center handled nearly 3,600 calls yesterday alone, a record number. I want to commend city staff for the exceptional job they have done to support residents, maintain essential city services, manage traffic and transit, and keep residents informed over the last few days. I also want to make note of the fact that we worked with Councillor Ralston King and OC Transpo. There is now a shuttle service between the Overbrook Community Centre and the Saint Laurent Community Centre, also known as the Don Gamble Centre, from 10 in the morning until 10 in the evening, because the Overbrook Forbes community has lost power in a lot of their public buildings, including the community centre. So they now have access to get on OC Transpo free of charge to go between Overbrook and the Saint Laurent Centre that has amenities, including electricity. Alors, merci à vous tous pour vos efforts incroyables depuis samedi après-midi. I also want to thank all Hydro Ottawa and Hydro One crews who are working around the clock to restore power across the city. A big thank you to the Hydro crews from other jurisdictions like Kingston, Toronto, London, and New Brunswick who have left their families to help us when we need it most. I'll now hand things over to Alain Gontier, the General Manager of Public Works, to provide an update. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi, tout le monde. As I mentioned yesterday, Public Works has deployed all available resources to focus on 3 key priorities, and I'll be providing an update on each one of them. The first one being the restoration of the transportation system. The second one is the collection of food waste. And the third one is the removal of damaged trees, branches, and miscellaneous debris. Yesterday we had, and today also, we have over 600 public works staff that have been redeployed to focus on those 3 priorities. And earlier today, I, along with our city manager, were out visiting a lot of our operations across the city. These are massive operations that are underway right now, but I could say that I'm extremely proud of the dedication of our staff, all of our partners and colleagues, really focused in terms of the recovery effort. Je suis très fier de la collaboration avec nos partenaires et nos collègues à travers la ville, avec Hydro et nos professionnels des travaux publics. The work that we're doing is really around repairing street lights, straightening traffic signs, clearing roads, clearing sidewalks, addressing dangerous fallen trees, collecting spoiled food, serving residents at incident commands, and just being there for the community for all of their needs. So I really want to say a big thank you for all of our front lines. So in terms of the transportation system, there are some good news to report. We have completed repairs to over 120 intersections that were damaged through since the storm that took place on Saturday. There are still 5 intersections that will require major repair and almost reconstruction because of the extent of damage, and we're working closely with our hydro partners to ensure that we can access those areas when it's safe to do so. We're also using 20 generators at key intersections to try to keep those running, especially during peak periods. And we're down now to about 75 controlled intersections without power. And that's a significant reduction from the over 700 that we had basically after the storm on Saturday night. So significant progress that has been made. Now, there are still a number of roads that remain closed because of down hydro wires and trees, and we're trying to get to those as quickly as it's safe to do so. The reminder that I sent yesterday, and I want to reiterate it again today, is because we still have a number of signalized intersections that are not operational, those need to be treated as always stop. That is essential basically for the safety of our traveling public. We've also seen an increase of traffic on our roads today. It's really important to remind people to really try to keep your travel, especially in the impacted areas, to essential travel only. Otherwise, this is significantly impacting both our cleanup efforts and also Hydro's work, especially when we have to travel between sites. So we're really appealing to the community to try to minimize the travel as much as possible. In terms of the update, in terms of the collection of food waste, and as Mr. Mayor indicated, we've been making a lot of great progress. Yesterday, we had a blitz in the hardest hit communities of Knoxdale, Maryvale, Stittsville River, and Cumberland wards. With special pickup in those areas, we collected over 8 tons of organic material. We have 8 specialized equipment that are also hitting key areas right now, especially zones where we know that the collection will be later in the week. And we really encourage residents to continue to leverage basically the regular collection schedule, as Mr. Mayor indicated. Early in the week, we had deployed also 4 bins at 4 key locations, especially for depots for spoiled waste and food. That has now been expanded to 15 locations across the city. I will quickly name those locations, but all of this information is available on ottawa.ca. So we still have a site at Navan Memorial Center, Cardell Rec Center, on Shea Road, the Hunt Club Riverside Park Community Center, Howard Darwin Centennial Arena, Minto Rec Complex, Walter Baker Sports Center, the Osgood Community Center, the Orleans Library, Lincoln Fields, Greeley Community Association, North Gore Client Service Center, Richmond Arena, Constance Bay Community Center, Sawmill Creek Community Center, and the Diamond Jubilee Park on Kelly Farm. Those are being monitored on a regular basis, and they're also being emptied on a regular basis, and I can say that they are being very well used by the community. The last area that I wanted to focus on, and probably the one that's the most significant right now, is on the removal of trees, debris, and branches. And by far, that's the most significant operation that we have right now. We have basically 3 levels of operation that are underway at the present time. We have basically the waste that we're able to collect through leaf and yard waste as part of our regular collection program. We have a kind of a smaller bundle of trees and all that that's easier to pick up in terms of collection. And we also have our significant operation related to removing trees and significant branch accumulation. So that last operation by far is our most significant operation. It's the one that's the most time consuming and also demanding from a heavy equipment operations, but our staff are up to the task. We do again remind residents to please keep their waste separate. So anything that's branches, tree related material, please keep that separate from other type of non-organic garbage like fences, patio furniture that's been damaged. It just makes our operation a lot more efficient. So in closing, all I can say is that basically we are very focused right now in terms of trying to get all of the cleanup done as soon as possible. Because we're redeploying so many resources to the cleanup and the recovery effort, it will have an impact on our other operations. be it grass cutting, collection of waste in parks, small sidewalk operations, and other minor maintenance items. We will resume those operations when it's appropriate to do so. Nous encourageons aussi les résidents qui visitent nos parcs d'essayer de vraiment d'amener leurs déchets avec eux à la maison pour minimiser les déchets qui sont déposés dans les parcs. One thing that would really help us is those that are visiting the parks, to the extent possible, to try to take the waste with them and dispose of them at home. It's going to take a lot of pressure off of our park operations in terms of the waste disposal. So we would be very appreciative for that. So again, I really appreciate the patience and the collaboration of the community. They've been tremendously helpful. So a big thank you. And also to all of our staff and partners, thank you for the collective effort. Un grand merci.
Thank you very much. I would now like to invite Kim Ayotte, General Manager, Emergency and Protective Services, to say a few words. J'invite maintenant Kim Ayotte, Directeur Général des Services de Protection et d'Urgence, à dire quelques mots.
Merci, Kina. Thank you, Alain. I have to say that your team is doing great work. So thank you to your team and well done. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. We are making progress on all fronts of this storm recovery. The work will continue in the coming days and weeks. Nous faisons des progrès sur tous les fronts de la reprise après la tempête et le travail se poursuivront dans les jours de la semaine, dans les jours et les semaines à venir. Our Emergency Operations Center continues to do a great job coordinating the city's overall response to this event. Staff from the city's Community and Social Services Department, Ottawa Public Health, and Red Cross are now doing wellness visits for the most vulnerable, at risk, and isolated in the city. This includes seniors as well as low-income and community housing neighborhoods. Ottawa Fire Services completed more than 1,100 wellness visits in the Western Command area alone. They have now shifted their recovery response to focus on assisting with brush and waste removal. Crews are also ensuring residents know where the emergency reception centers are. Our first responders, including paramedics and police services, are all doing great work responding to calls and assisting those in need during this difficult time. As the mayor mentioned, we have a group of forestry specialists. They're also known as firefighters coming from the province to help out. They'll be on the ground Saturday morning and starting to clean up. They'll also be joined by a group known as the Samaritan's Purse, who helped with our tornadoes in 2018. More to follow for those who want to volunteer. At this point in time, we are not accepting volunteers pending making sure that the sites are safe. So, but if you're interested in volunteering, we will have more information for you on that as the week unfolds. There are more than 1,300 residents visited our 4 service emergency centers, reception centers, which are Cardell Rec, François Dupuis, Howard Darwin Centennial, and Hunt Club Riverside. That was yesterday alone. Countless more residents have come to their local recreation facilities for showers, washrooms, or to charge their devices. We've added new locations and expanded services at others. Starting today, Saint Laurent Complex will be open for power for charging devices, showers, washrooms, and food. Also new, the Overbrook Community Center is offering meals, food delivery, and showers. There's limited availability to charge the devices since the center is currently running on generator power. A full list of the 17 emergency centers locations are on the Storm Recovery webpage. You'll find the page at ottawa.ca/storm recovery. I know I've heard people complain about what if we don't have power or access to the internet? How can we get this information? Well, let me say that the radio stations have been doing a great job at promoting these sites and informing the public. So I would suggest that you continue to listen to our local radio news stations who will provide this information to you as well. We are also posting them whenever possible in the neighborhoods. Bottled water and hoses to fill your containers with potable water are available at 7 locations. Again, you can find the details on the Storm Recovery webpage or through your media outlets. De l'eau d'embouteiller et des tuyaux pour remplir vos contenants d'eau portables sont disponibles à 7 endroits. Encore une fois, vous pouvez trouver les détails sur la page web Storm Recovery. These centers are open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. through to Friday at least. We'll share weekend schedules in the coming days. Les installations sont ouvertes de 10h à 22h jusqu'à vendredi au moins. Nous vous transmettrons sous peu l'horaire de la fin de semaine. We are still asking people to stay off the roads if possible and make it easier for emergency repair vehicles to navigate. OC Transpo is a great alternative for driving if you need to travel around the city. Nous demandons aux résidents d'éviter de déplacer dans la mesure du possible, afin de faciliter le déplacement des véhicules d'urgence et de réparation. OC Transpo est une excellente solution d'échange si vous devez vous déplacer dans la ville. To stay current on our storm recovery work, city social media channels, and the city website, ottawa.ca, you can find a link to the main storm recovery information page at the top corner of the city's homepage. Again, we've asked local media stations to share this information so that residents without power or internet can stay informed over their battery-powered or crank-operated radios. Thank you very much for understanding. We're in this together, and we will be there for you. We are there for you, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Finally, I would now like to invite Bryce Conrad, President and Chief Executive Officer, Hydro Ottawa, to say a few words. Finalement, j'invite maintenant Bryce Conrad, Président et Chef de la Direction.
Thank you. Good afternoon. At the height of the storm, there were over 180,000 customers out of power across the city. In the past 4 days, Hydro Ottawa's crews have restored power to more than 125,000 customers throughout the city. While we tend to get lost in the numbers, the reality is we are rebuilding and reconnecting over half of our distribution system within a matter of days. Obviously, our work is far from over. We're doubling down with more resources to put the remaining 55,000 customers without power back up. It is tough, laborious work, and it takes time to do right and safely. Fortunately, today, more help arrived with a large team from Toronto Hydro who will perform restoration work on some of the most impacted areas of the city. In addition, crews, as the Mayor noted, from London Hydro and Cornwall are expected tomorrow. In total, we have over an extra 250 skilled resources working with our field crews and teams. All of these resources, let me assure you, will be retained until such time as every house in Ottawa is reconnected to the grid. This is by far the most devastating weather event we have experienced to date, which for Ottawa these days is actually saying something. But as we've done before, we will get through this together. For the remaining customers still without power, we know you're counting on us. We know that you're tired, you're anxious, you're frustrated, and even angry. All I can tell you is that we are working around the clock to restore power to each and every corner of our service territory. You will note significant restoration efforts are underway on Maryvale, Woodruff, and Greenbank Road. Crews are also out in Pine Glen, which is obviously one of the hardest hit areas and effectively ground zero for this storm. Crews are also out in Overbrook and Elmville Acres doing what we can to help restore power to the large Ottawa community housing facilities for some of our most vulnerable. I can say with confidence that we still fully expect the system to be up and running by the end of day Friday. Unfortunately, those who've looked at the forecast, the weather is suggesting more wind gusts and rain over the next 3 days, which may hamper those efforts, but we will work to the limits of safe operations to keep going. That being said, there will be a significant number of homes that will still require additional support to get reconnected, largely because of damage to their own properties. Fortunately, we are prepared to help our customers in those instances, and we have crews ready to support. With this work, we're getting close to having specific neighborhood details and restoration times, and as soon as we're in a position to communicate those times and dates, we will. Once again, thank you to our customers for your patience as we're getting closer to the finish line. I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't mention a key safety message I want the public to keep in mind. Our crews are working with a very dangerous substance. Please keep a safe distance away and respect the perimeters in place around those work sites. These sites are extremely dangerous, and distractions put the safety of our crews and the public at risk. At the end of the day, we want everyone to go home to their families. Again, until all power is restored to each and every home and business, we will be working 24/7. Please stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will now invite each media agency to ask their question. You may ask one question with one follow-up. J'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question et une question de suivi. We'll now start with, nous allons commencer par Mia Rabson, Canadian Press.
Hi, yeah, good afternoon. I'm wondering, I know we asked questions about the emergency alert system over the weekend, but there have been other questions raised since just about whether people got it early enough. And I'm just wondering if the city would have any requests to Environment Canada about future emergency alerts, whether you think it could be done better or more often or earlier, how you see that system being improved.
Kim, would that be something you could answer?
Yes, thank you, Mia, for that question, Mr. Mayor. I think that when we look at the amount of warning we actually received with regards to the storm, it was throughout the day. And while the alert system went out shortly before the event hit, it's exactly for that purpose. It's to give people some warning. Once you hear that alert, you should immediately take action to take cover. And at the very least, have a look outside to see whether or not you are in the middle of it. But I think that's where we need to kind of continue with our public education practices, et cetera, and work with Environment Canada to see what we can do. Some of these warnings come at the very last minute. So we need to prepare ahead of time, and we need to listen carefully to those weather forecasts that may not have the alert attached to them at that point in time. So there were a lot of weather warnings, and the alert came in, and I think that it did what it was supposed to do. But I have no problem continuing to have these discussions with Environment Canada to see if there's any opportunity for improvements. But as far as I'm concerned, it worked the way it should have.
I guess when you look at what happened, though, I mean, people being trapped in their cars because power wires had come down, it seems like a lot of people knew there was a storm coming, but still got caught unaware that, or maybe trying to take cover because it hit so quickly. I'm just thinking, given that we expect more of these types of storms to come, what the city can do, either education-wise or with alerts, to convince people to take those warnings seriously.
Yeah, I think it's an all-of-community effort on this front. The city does have an education program with regards to emergency management, and I also believe that Environment Canada does a good job at educating people on that front as well. With regards to being trapped in their cars, those are difficult situations. This was a very large storm that hit many different areas, and maybe their car was their only area of refuge or of safety at the time, based on the circumstances they were dealing with. Some people were in their cars far away from other areas. So again, it's great for us to revisit these issues post incident, but there's also the reality of having certain situations affect your reality in the middle of it. I think that's where some of these people, unfortunately, found themselves in a difficult situation, where to go.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Joe Tunney at CBC Ottawa.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. And once again, I just want to make sure I get my answers in French and English. But really, what my question's pretty simple. We've heard a lot about power, when that's going to be restored, but I think a lot of people working from home or for other reasons are also kind of wondering about internet. So I'm curious, what do you recommend to Ottawans who cannot get online? I know there's a number of invaluable resources right now on the website. I'm just curious, what options are open to those who have been disconnected?
I can just offer a comment on that, Joseph. A couple of options. One, a number of libraries branches are open, which have internet access, Wi-Fi access, as well as most of the 17 community center buildings that we've listed on our website also have Wi-Fi access that is free of charge as well. So those are two options that the city has available. And I believe City Hall also in the downtown core has free Wi-Fi on the main level of Jean Piggott Place. I don't know if others wanted to add to that.
Yeah.
Okay. En français, certainement, il y a des places pour Internet dans les 17 centres communautaires, c'est gratuit. C'est la même chose avec les bibliothèques. Je pense qu'il y a 7 ou 8 succursales de bibliothèques qui est ouvert et fournir le Wi-Fi gratuit pour les résidents de la ville d'Ottawa.
So what would you say to people who rely on the internet for their livelihood? Are there options for them?
Well, again, if you'd have to go to the internet provider. I've heard from a number of people who, obviously are concerned and upset that their internet service is off, but they would have to really contact their supplier. As I mentioned, we've got options available for people to come. I know it's not perfect. It's not a desk situation, but there's tables and chairs at most of these centers, and individuals can certainly use the internet access at those centers, and those are all geographically spread out across the city. So almost every ward has at least one site.
And do we have an estimate on when internet will be restored for all customers? Is there any understanding there?
Does anyone have that? I don't have that information.
Mr. Mayor, I think that will rely on the power being restored. So I think that they're definitely connected. I'm also being told that I'm not coming across very well with the sound. So if I start to speak much louder, I'm not yelling at you.
I know, just to follow up on Joseph's point, I know that, I've talked to 2 people today whose power is back, but their internet is still not back. So that really is an issue that individuals are going to have to deal with their private internet connection company. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to Alex Gouge at City News Ottawa.
Hello. I know this was touched on briefly by Hydro Ottawa, but what concerns are there with some rain in the horizon within the next couple of days with the restoration efforts?
Bryce, I believe you're on mute.
I promise the next pandemic I'll get that straight. Look, thanks for the question, Alex. The context is quite simple. The crews have been working around the clock since the storm hit. They're tired. They're exhausted. When the rain comes and the weather comes, there's limitations on the work that they can do. They obviously can't do live line work, so that will hamper the restoration somewhat. The good news is, as you can see, just driving around their service territory, there's lots of construction work, lots of tree removal, all that sort of stuff that can be done. So it's unpleasant, but you know what? They'll work to the safe limits of the operation.
Perfect. That's my only question today. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Next, we'll go to Ted Raymond at CTV Ottawa.
Hi there. Thanks again for taking our questions. So my first question will be to Mr. Conrad. I'm wondering if you have a figure on how many poles you have left to replace, and how many you've done so far throughout this process.
Bryce, I believe you're on mute again.
It's all right. We thought we had over 200 down. The number's closer to 240 at the start of it. We keep finding more that need to be replaced. So the short answer is 240 to start out with. I think we're down to, I say 150, but I haven't been briefed on the latest numbers. But the good news is we have all the poles we need. So it's just a question of getting them back up. So
would you say you've done maybe about 100 so far?
Yeah, I mean, don't quote me on it, but yeah, somewhere in that range. There's a lot of work that's needs to be done before.
Okay, excellent. I appreciate that. Do you know roughly, and this is for you again, Bryce, how many? You said there were some homes that are going to need some extra work. Do you have any indication at this point? Like even just a rough estimate of how many that would be that might have to wait a little bit longer than the Friday estimate you've given?
No, sorry, I don't have an estimate. It is effectively houses where, we've restored the system, and, whether there's damage to the meter, damage to the mast, damage to the secondary lines going into their house. Those are all things that happen after a normal storm event. And given the violence of this particular storm, I would expect that number could quite frankly be in literally the thousands. So hopefully I'm overestimating, but from what I can see, even as we drive around, we're seeing, pointing it out to specific homeowners.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we'll go to Blair Crawford at the Ottawa Citizen.
Hi, I have a question for Mr. Conrad too, and I think Joseph Tunney touched on this, but talking about the forecast for tomorrow with rain and thunderstorms delaying the recovery, is that just because the workers won't be able to be on the job, or is there a possibility that the system's still a bit fragile, being in mid-repair and a little bit vulnerable, perhaps?
Well, I mean, wind gusts are not our friend at the moment, so let's start there. Obviously, as we're putting stuff up and we start to get wind gusts, that's not helpful. If you're in a bucket truck 60 feet in the air and you start to get wind gusts of 60 and 70 kilometers, that's also not safe. So, these are things that we will work with and work around. And if we have to pull crews down and get them to do other work, then that's what we'll do. And if there's obviously lightning and thunder, well then, I'm not putting crews up in metal bucket trucks, and exposing them to that danger. So it's what we have to work with and we work around. So we'll do what we need to do. As I said, the good news is there's lots of work. So if they're not doing that, they'll be doing something else.
Yeah, sorry, I guess I kind of meant the repairs that you've done now, are these permanent repairs or are they sort of temporary repairs that are vulnerable?
No, for the most part, everything we're putting up is permanent. There may be a couple of jury rig things just to sort of get power to specific facilities, but otherwise it's all permanent.
Okay, thanks. And the second question to Mr. Ayotte, I think you mentioned that there were 5 intersections. I'm not sure of the number that were still down. And I'm wondering if you're considering deploying police to direct traffic at the peak rush hour times, because some of those intersections are pretty chaotic.
Thank you very much for your question. I'll pass this on to Alain Gonche, since he's responsible for the intersections and he was the person speaking to it. So Alain, can you answer that?
Yep, certainly can. So the 5 intersections that we're dealing with are really ones that along Maryville and all that are already under wires. So as soon as our hydro partners are done securing the area, then we're going to be able to basically restore those intersections. In terms of the rest of the intersections that don't have power, and that's the only thing that's limiting their operability, we've already deployed over generators at over 40 or 20 locations that are key intersections of the city. Prince of Wales and Hunt Club is an example of it, and those are basically operating during peak hours. So, but to have generators, basically those need to be staffed, and we continue basically to fine tune the operation as areas come up on stream with power. Then we redeploy basically those generators to other locations.
Okay, but you're not having police direct traffic at any of the big intersections?
The only time that we have police right now assisting us is when we're actually doing construction works at the intersection. As you can appreciate, the police resources are also being very stretched right now, and there's no way for them to be deploying resources to every single intersection. But we are trying to work with them on some of the key ones, especially where we have repairs to complete.
Blair, it's Jim Watson. If I can just follow up on what Alain said, I spoke with Chief Bell of the Ottawa Police Service today. A number of colleagues on council have told me of some fairly difficult intersections, large intersections that have had some difficulties with people coming and going. So he's actually looking at seeing if we can't free up a few officers for the very large, challenging intersections in the city. And we're hoping to get some response sometime by today at the latest. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you. We'll now go to Matthew Lapierre at the Ottawa Sun.
Hi, a question I think for Alain Gauthier. Just curious what's going to happen with all of this wood debris. Is this something that's overwhelmed the city's ability to sort of process it all?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So right now what we've set up are basically 4 transfer stations across the city in strategic areas. So as we're cleaning up the different neighborhoods, we're bringing the material there. We're going to be chipping the material at that place, and we're looking basically for disposal opportunities. The last time, if I could just use an example, for when we had the 2018 tornado, we used a similar approach, and all of the chip material we sent to Terso for processing at that location. So we are exploring options right now.
Thanks. And then a question for Bryce. Conrad, I know you might not know specifics right now, but can you give us any indication of areas of the city that might stay without power for longer than others? And, you mentioned yourself, like driving around the city, were there areas you saw that you thought, okay, this is going to take longer than other neighborhoods to set back up?
No, I don't have specifics. As others have done. I've gone around and toured and been overwhelmed by sort of how the devastation. You look at some place like Pine Glen and just think, how did this happen? But we have crews in the Pine Glen area right now, and last I've checked, they've confirmed that we're still on track for a Friday night energization there. So again, hoping everything, if we find more damage, then so be it. We'll deal with it. And if the weather doesn't cooperate, we'll deal with that as well. But at the moment, no, I'm not in a position to sort of predict where won't be able to energize.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Nous allons maintenant à Charles Lalande à Radio-Canada.
Oui, merci. Ma question est en français pour M. Watson. Juste nous expliquer votre discussion avec Doug Ford qui vous a assuré qu'il allait payer que la province plutôt allait payer les coûts de nettoyage des rues, un peu comment ça s'est fait, puis comment on en est venu à ce cadeau de la province dans les circonstances.
Oui, certainement. M. Ford m'a appelé, je pense à 10 heures ce matin. Pour demander une mise à jour avec les activités de Hydro Ottawa et l'activité de la personnel de la ville d'Ottawa. Et je donnais cet update à M. Ford. Et après ça, j'ai posé la question ou mentionné que c'est vraiment important pour la province d'aider avec les finances de ce projet parce que ça coûte beaucoup des millions de dollars. Et il m'a dit clairement que la province va payer pour tous les factures avec la situation ici avec les tempêtes. Alors, je suis content avec cette proclamation de M. Ford parce que c'est vraiment difficile pour une ville de payer les grands coûts après la tempête.
En fait, aussi, hier, quand on s'est parlé, vous avez dit, pour la majorité des gens, ça va prendre 2 à 3 jours. Vous avez redit la même chose aujourd'hui. Est-ce qu'il y a des retards? Comment expliquer, en fait, qu'on est un peu dans la même mise à jour qu'hier, 24 heures plus tard?
Mais peut-être M. Conrad va expliquer la situation. M. Conrad, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, merci, M. le maire. C'est vraiment une question de la construction. Donc, on est en train de faire les grands projets maintenant partout aux villes. Donc, on enlève les arbres, on enlève le débris, puis on commence à mettre l'hydro. J'espère que ça va accélérer un peu, mais ça prend du temps pour faire de la construction. C'est la réponse.
OK, merci. Puis, peut-être une relance pour Jim Watson. Si jamais Doug Ford n'est pas élu, mais réélu, est-ce que vous avez la chance que le nouveau gouvernement va aussi payer les frais de nettoyage ou peut-être que là, ça deviendra un enjeu?
Oui, certainement. J'ai parlé avec les 3 leaders des grands partis, M. Ford, M. Del Duca et Mme Horwath, et tout offrir leur appui, pas spécifiquement une totale, parce qu'à ce moment, on ne sait pas le total, mais M. Kanalakis et M. Conrad et des autres personnes de la ville et Hydro, comment on dit, are keeping their receipts. Qu'est-ce que c'est le mot keeping the receipts?
Garder les reçus.
Garder les reçus. Et j'ai beaucoup de confiance que les 3 leaders des partis connaissent qu'il y a un rôle et responsabilité de la province d'aider avec des finances pour cette tempête.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Cela conclut le point de presse d'aujourd'hui. This concludes our media availability this afternoon. Thank you very much. Merci.